welcome to this edition of the Baer Faxt Live. We're in Basel. It's sponsored by Manuela, one of my favorite restaurants in New York, by Art Farm. So it's a restaurant, it's a bar, right in the middle of Soho, not London Soho, New York Soho, like where the artist used to be. And it's got the best seasonal products, and it's an art place too. So Manuela, I'm sure you've been there.
Yeah.
So we're joined at Basel by Vincenzo de Bellis, the Bellissimo.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, what's the data telling you?
Well, even though we're early stages, we are seeing pretty IA activities across all the different segments of the market. And what's very interesting, because I really did a tour. I usually start from upstairs. For those of you who are familiar with our Basel, we have 2 floors. And so on the second floor, there's the more emerging and strictly contemporary galleries. And in the last few years, you could sense that people were started from the ground floor. And this year, I had a very strong feeling that people were kind of more evenly spread between upstairs, downstairs. Sign that there's a market more evenly spread between strictly contemporary art and more kind of the blue chip modern art.
Yes, I'm a downstairs kind of person, but you can see those categories are breaking down of people who were always upstairs, and I'd like to see the categories even more mush up in the future.
Yeah, I think it's a trajectory that we're going to see more and more. As you might have noticed, also upstairs there are more people who bring secondary market because they try to also give a context to the more emerging artists that they have. And then the same would be downstairs, where you have, the masters of contemporary, modern and contemporary, and you also start seeing some of the, in this year specifically, some great, well-known contemporary artists.
So back to data, it's like, what kind of data do you track? One data point is like, how many private jets landed today in Basel? I mean, do you even count that statistic?
Yeah, we do count all the statistics. We count
so how many?
We receive that at the end of every day. We are in the middle of this day. We don't have that data, but I can have that for you tomorrow.
And then the data you're collecting is how many visitors?
Visitors, where these visitors are coming from, and then that's a data that we have kind of constant updates on, and we also have data and anecdotes on the sales part.
So one of the data points that I'm sort of interested in professionally is we pay a lot of attention to like opening day.
Yeah.
Or now you have 2, it's like, who's the person who's coming Saturday or Friday? And are they targeted differently? And then they looked at in a different way.
So that's a great question, first of all. For me, of course, there's different kind of public, and there's a tendency to have most of the, and what I'm saying is pretty obvious, but most of the well-known clients, well-known collectors tend to come at the beginning of the show. Having said that, especially in Basel, but not only in Basel, especially in Basel, you have collectors coming throughout the whole week. Let's not forget that in Europe, and we are in the art of Europe, there's a lot of very sophisticated collectors who have jobs, who from Monday to Friday, and then they come to Basel on a Friday night and they spend the weekend here. So you have a lot of great surprises usually on the Saturday and Sunday in Basel.
I think we've sort of gotten away from that into this whole PDF. You have 1 hour to see it. But I also think, as we think of the Baer Faxt, there's got to be a way of identifying that person who's coming Friday. They'll pay a ticket, and what's it, 50 francs or something, 100 francs. It's expensive to get in. I'm sure you have student rates and all that, but so they're willing to spend real money. They walk around and they're willing to buy art, and they probably don't even know the name of the gallery. So do you market, how do you put a fair that works for them as well as, I've seen major museum directors here. How do you make it work for both populations?
Well, we do it together with the galleries. I mean, you as a fair director, fair organizer, we have first of all, we ask galleries to have different kind of opportunities, the different kind of offering. Galleries are very open to that, much more than people might think. Because for them, it's very important actually to get the new public. And whether, we're talking about nothing at Art Basel is strictly cheap. Speaking on very
inexpensive.
Open, inexpensive. That's a very good, that's where my non-English speaking comes in.
We'll give you a pass on that.
Nothing is inexpensive, but there's of course very different price point. And clearly, every gallery is interested in having some entry level. For people that really can start collecting. And that usually happens during the weekend. Downstairs specifically, upstairs, that's already starts already from the first days. How do we do that? How do we target that? The first days are really, we have specific kind of actions that we do where we want collectors, specific collectors and museum professionals to be engaging with some works. And you do that by informing them beforehand what galleries are bringing, but also making sure that when they converse with the galleries, they also know that some works are only going to be seen here. I'll give you an example. The Mark Rothko work that you might have seen at Hauser, that was not promoted anywhere. And it was not even up during the first days of installation. So it just went up this last night. Just because, they didn't want, and I think it's a very, we as fair organizers, we like that. There's something that it's not on previews, it's not everywhere. So people need to come here to see it.
Well, the advantage of that too is kind of smart. It's like, let's say it doesn't sell.
Yeah.
It's like there's the most expensive piece was supposedly the $30 million Picasso at base. So if it doesn't sell, then it's an easy headline that, oh my God, the sky's falling. Kind of like when the Giacometti didn't sell its other piece because one person didn't do it. So if they haven't announced it, then there's less risk for the entire group of all the people to give them this cheap headline.
Yeah.
$40 million Rothko has no buyer.
That is definitely a possibility. But I also want to think, because I have that conversation with the galleries literally on the 6.5 months, and since when they are selected to when they come to the fair, I've also heard more and more that they really tailor specific works and the previews to specific different kind of public, and therefore it's very important. And again, I don't want to repeat myself, but it's very important that some things only appear at the fairs, because honestly, that's
why get on a plane and come 8,000 miles to see stuff that's all sold.
Exactly, or that you already have seen via a social media. Now, let me say also very, very straightforwardly, galleries have to do their jobs, and they have to do what is best for their own artists and their own businesses. But we really welcome those kind of cross communication and cross pollination of information, so that we can also keep that vibrancy of the fair very, very strong.
So the challenge then is like, what makes every iteration of the fair different? I think we talked about this before. For the beginning of some fairs, particularly Miami, where one year there's the containers on the beach. It's like, whoever would have thought about that? Or here it's like, oh, there's Art Unlimited. Yeah. That's new. How do you keep it new?
Well, that's,
for us old guys.
Yeah, it's true. It's a great question, and it's not an easy thing to change, to have kind of constant renovation. The format is being pretty steady for many years, But you work on the, let me use this language. You work on the outskirts, on the periphery of where you have. You made the example of the containers, right? That was in addition to what was happening in the convention center. Here, which is as a different vibe, what we've done this year. It's the second year, but I think it's very important to repeat that experience with parkour, which now is on one specific area, much closer to the fair. And then the Messeplatz project is always something that we rotate and we change. And this year, I think we've done something excellent with Caterina Grosse. And then, of course, although Unlimited is always the same kind of format, the reality is that because the galleries change over time and because the tone of the moment changes according to what's happening outside, out in the real world, that also is always something that changes. You might have noticed, that the Unlimited of this year is different from last year. You have less walls, more freestanding works, which is a reference to two things. Maybe the galleries are making different kind of decisions, but also in many ways, and weirdly enough, they're taking more risks.
So my question on that is the risk-taking and looking at the model, and people are always, and we do it too, talking about, is the gallery model broken? Is the art fair model broken? Is the resistance to change more from the galleries than from the organization?
I think...
I suspect it is.
I tend to agree with you. And it's for them is a very... Their jobs, their programs is exposed here.
This
and
is
so,
the most critical week financially.
Exactly.
It's how I feel walking around it. I feel very hopeful gallerist in years where they were like, hey, it's 12 o'clock, I'm done.
Yeah.
I've made it. There's a sense of cautious optimism mixed with a tinge of fear, where the money to be made here is critical, and it makes change scary.
Yeah, I agree with you. And we experience, as you know, we want to change. We want to keep doing different
It can't be
things,
interesting
right?
for you to
But,
the same year. Here's
yeah.
Aquavella. Here's the booths, and okay, we have one new thing there. How does it stay interesting for you?
It's great to have it's great to have a mix of everything, in the sense that having tradition and knowing where you find specific things, it's beautiful. You have that feeling also when you go to museums, because when you go to MoMA, you know where to find specific things. At the same time, you also want to see new juxtapositions when speaking about museums. Maybe because I'm a former museum person, I think that way. You want to
I go to MoMA, I want to see.
You want to do the same things here, and you want to have some steady presence, meaning artist-wise, so you know where to find specific people, specific presentations, and then around it, you try to move things around so that people have a different kind of experience.
I mean, it's a little tough. I had a little bit of a feeling like I've seen this fair before.
Yeah.
And I think the exhibitors themselves feel that, but they're sort of caught in, we need our steady, regular things to show we are, and they sort of would like to dance around a little bit more, and it's a huge challenge.
It is. I mean, it is a challenge. Our role is to keep pushing the boundaries no matter what. This year, for example, one thing that we've done is to thinking of what's happening within the art world, within the market. We wanted to be very supportive, for lack of a better word, of a specific category of galleries that are not anymore an emerging gallery, but they don't have maybe the muscles or the strength to jump right into the main sector. So we've created a premier sector, which is something in between.
Premium economy.
Yeah,
kind of.
It's kind of, but it's also you need to be mindful that this can be a great support for galleries to have a supported kind of entry, and also to be exposed at certain level, which maybe if they do special sectors, they don't have.
Well, it puts you in this awkward role, I think, of being like the moral and ethical voice for the entire art world. The same gets imposed on the auction houses that somehow, and it's not really conceivable. You're running a business, they're running businesses, the artists need to take responsibility for their business, so to speak. So, and we're still playing around with, we have this ocean liner, how do we pivot it, which I'll come back to, but now you're creating a new fair in Doha.
Yes.
That gives you the opportunity there
Yep.
to start at scratch.
Yep.
So can you give us some insight as you're the head of global affairs of how that might be conceived? Of course, it could change quite a bit in 8 months, but that's like, it's different.
Yes, it needs to be different. It really requires a different approach because it's a new place for us. It's a new place for many of us. Let me start by saying why we've done that, so that we can. I think it is important, right? And
You surprised us all. We were like waiting for Art Basel, Abu Dhabi, and then I was in Saudi Arabia, and there was a little hint there, but no, you got us with Doha.
It's very important to acknowledge that the whole region is very important and very interesting. And I'm saying this from an artistic perspective. I've done, in the last 2.5 years since I joined Art Basel, I've done a lot of trips in the region, and I visited all the countries. And I can tell you that there's great, you've been recently there.
I was there, and particularly in KSA, it's like, wow, there's world-class art there I didn't even know.
And that's
I went, that's on me to like do that. I'm not sure that's everywhere, but it's enough.
Yeah, and that's exactly my point. My point is that there's art, and if you consider, now we're talking specifically GCC, the Gulf region, but if that project, the Art Basel Qatar, really looks at the entire Menaza region that goes from North Africa to South Asia. It's a large, and Qatar and the Gulf is in the
It's
middle
Asian.
of that.
It's actually Asia.
So
By the way,
that is a large part of the world that deserves, and I'm sorry to use this language, but I feel, I'm not sorry. I think it's the perfect language to say deserves more visibility. And
because we're putting more visibility there because there's like oil money, but there's visibility there from cultural history.
yeah, that's
I think is what you're trying to say. And I would tell our audience, listen, we talk about the art market all the time, but I'm telling you, there's some art there that counts.
No, actually, people make an easy equation that because there's wealth in the region. But I'm talking exactly what, let's not forget that there's the part of the world that we're talking about has been at it's where our civilization has started in many ways. And so I think that is so important that we open our arms for and really kind of embrace a new part of the world that it's largely.
Can you be a little bit more specific as to what it might mean for this?
Well, for sure. So and thank you. We'll go. It's just going more specific. The show will start. It's going to be a growing process. We're going to start fairly small. We've announced that we're going to be starting with 50 galleries. Probably it's going to be a little more than that, but it's going to be very small compared to our traditional.
So by invitation?
Shows. No, it will be a selection process. There will be a selection process, and we are currently looking at all the specific details, which we're going to reveal next week, the week after Basel. We intentionally waited until the end of Basel, but it needs to be rooted around the place where we are. And so the link between the culture, the Menaza culture, and what people are going to see brought by the galleries will have to be very important.
I think the struggle there is people there about how do we get our art out, and then the West, how do we bring our art in? And then for me, you add, it's actually Asia, and there's not a big connection yet there. I guess the bridge might be India, but in a sense, it's like there's a lot of challenges there. It's like one of the things that, and I hope it happens, that's made Art Basel Paris work, and it's always worked here, is all the things going on around it.
Yes.
So I've never seen so many first-rate gallery shows as Paris maybe 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So I assume there's going to have to be a big component that's beyond the walls of whatever palace or convention center that you're in.
Yeah, and that's a and I first of all I agree with you, and there's world class art shown already right in Qatar that a lot of people have not seen yet. If you think about the public art that is in the desert in Doha, I don't know how many people have seen that in person.
I've seen part of it. So the Richard Serra sculpture in the desert there
is unbelievable.
Hopefully you didn't go in June like I did.
So I'm saying, and that's just one example. And the museum infrastructure, as we know, and the vision of Her Excellency
That's my
Sheikh
phone dinging.
Al-Mayasa
Sorry about that, everybody. I'm a little bit of a rookie at this. Silence the phone. I apologize. Outtakes for the blooper feature of that. So how long should people think to spend there? Not the exhibitors. So I'm telling my clients we should go.
We're looking at a program that will be active for 4 or 5 days, because we want to be focused on, of course, on the show and on the fair, but also we want them to explore both museums and the desert.
And then the other regions of the Gulf.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's like whether to coordinate where else to go, because that's a little peninsula there, and you can't drive anywhere else.
But you can easily fly from one to the other. It's only 1 hour.
It's back to the private planes. We'll count the private planes there compared to here. We should have that stat growing. I think NetJets used to do that. Well, I'm excited to go there and to see what it is. I wanted to ask one last question that I wrote about last week. We're always talking about transparency, and I see that no one has done it. It's like, can we put the prices on the labels at the fair? I suggested that. What do you think?
I saw your. Well, I personally have nothing against it, but again, it depends on what galleries want to do. I mean, I think that's a.
Used to be only the biggest gallery that did it. Bob Venusian do it like $8.5 million. It's like, why be embarrassed? It's like.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. Again, it's. My role is our role is to provide them the space where to operate. The way they operate, and it should be their own decision. Having said that, it's also, you make a fair point, but it's also true, and that the art world has been building its own myth in many ways around also people guessing and people knowing or not knowing things. So whether we like that or not,
we sort of like that as advisors. Do we know how much that was?
Yeah.
It gives us, and for collectors, they offered it to me with blah, blah, blah. At the same time, they're begging to expand the world, and we need more and bigger, but all their actions are sort of conservative and prudish. It's kind of counterintuitive.
I agree, but it's also, we should have a probably longer conversation about that.
Well, and the last one that's, again, I write about it in advance of my op-ed this week. We're often thinking about the complexity of the time we're in, or the word often thrown into complicated. So we have this fair going on, and we have the world, particularly in America, but the world, and we're talking about the Gulf region, in crisis. It's sort of like a general question to have there, given your obligations to your company, it's like in your personal views. So it's kind of, I think everybody's feeling it this year, whether they're talking about it or not.
I think it takes a toll on all of us, to be honest. But on the other end, it's all of us have to. It's not easy. Let me. I'm trying to find the right words, because something is what we think all personally on everything that's going on, and the other is the public responsibilities you have.
And
Both
your
with your
professional
company
ones.
and
You're in the art business. What do you do?
and then, things happen. How do you respond to things that are happening 48 hours before, when you've been working for a whole year on something where you have the responsibilities of, honestly, thousands of people? It's tough, but I rest assured we all think about it.
Yes, I think that's kind of the takeaway, and that is we can't pretend to not think about it, but then we have to figure out how to do both, personally and as a company. Like your Instagram as an individual would be different than your Instagram
Yes,
from
of the
that,
company, yeah.
and from the artist, and all that is like. But it's definitely pervasive in, just as I'll talk about, just the question, how are you?
Yeah.
Which is the most polite, at least that's how Americans.
Yeah.
The Europeans start with how are you? What do you say?
I mean, you're asking the wrong person, because I've lived too long in the U.S. not to do that. I say more and more people do, because I think with COVID things changed already, because we started feeling more the world.
I remember
how do people
freeze London. Everybody was so happy
Yeah.
to see each other. It's the first time I ever saw everybody happy in the art world.
Yeah, but I think we do ask more, how we are,
Which becomes, who are we?
yeah,
And that's like, who are we as an organization? Who are we as an individual? Who are we as a society? I mean, it's complicated. We're in Switzerland, which is, my wife being Swiss, I'm almost Swiss, is famous for its neutrality.
Yes.
But we're not in a neutral moment.
yeah.
And all that. So I think that's been great to see. We look to see the sales reports.
Yeah.
I'm sure they'll be strong. Did you buy anything?
No, I didn't. I usually wait for the last day.
So the
I might
prices go
find
down?
I might find some sales at the end.
Yeah, where the prices go down and you can really bargain. Like, you don't want to ship that home, do you?
Exactly. Also, I usually have to go for small things. So let's see what's left.
Yeah, and you want everybody to know what you're getting. They'll
Yeah.
all get jealous of each other. So thank you, Vincenzo. Thanks again to Manuela in New York by Art Farm. They sponsored this edition of the Baer Faxt Live from Basel. Don't forget them as Swiss. And they're right in Soho, New York. Maybe there's a Soho Doha.
There's Mishera in Doha,
I did go to
downtown.
Raoul's, which is Soho, New York, in Riyadh. So who knows? There probably is that. And they've got, and it's true at all their locations, the best food, the best products. It's like, and see the bourgeois and the gusted and all that. And you can also check them out online at, I think it's www. I think it's on our next thing. Yeah, hang on. Moving ahead of the tech team, Manuela-nyc.com. Thank you.
Lovely to see you.
Thank you.